Hello everyone, welcome to my channel the MBBS Hub. So today we are going to start a new topic and today's topic is esophagus. So let's start the histology of esophagus. So esophagus is a narrow and long muscular tube that extends from the pharynx and it opens into the cardiac end of the stomach. As in the previous video we learned about the stomach, so near the cardiac end the esophagus comes and joins. So what's the function? Now the function of esophagus is that it conducts the chewed food, that is the bolus, and liquids into stomach. The lumen is collapsed and hence it contains the longitudinal folds and opens when the food bolus passes through it. So when the food passes through it, then only the lumen opens. Now the length of esophagus, naturally the length of esophagus in human is near about 25 centimeter. So now we will see the walls of the esophagus. Now esophagus has four types of walls or four layers of walls. So the innermost is the mucosa, after that the submucosa, next is the muscularis externa, and the outermost is the adventitia. So now we will study each of these layers individually. So our first layer is the mucosa. The mucous membrane, the mucosa membrane of esophagus shows several longitudinal folds, and these disappear when the tube is distended. When food passes through the tube, then these longitudinal folds distend. Now lining epithelium, the mucosa is lined by the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. So what is the lining epithelium for esophagus? The lining epithelium is the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Now lamina propria. The lamina propria is a finger-like processes of the connective tissue that project into the epithelial layer. We will see this in the diagram. Now glands. At the upper and lower ends of the esophagus, some tubulo-alveolar mucous glands are present in the lamina propria. And muscularis mucosa, this is made up of the longitudinally oriented smooth muscle fibers which are thick in the upper part and help in the swallowing of food. So the muscularis mucosa, these are longitudinally oriented smooth muscle fibers. Always remember the longitudinally oriented smooth muscle fibers which are thick in the upper end, and the main function of this muscle is to help in swallowing of the food. So this is the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. This is the epithelium layer, stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. After that the lamina propria, and then the muscularis mucosa. These are the muscularis mucosa layer. So our next layer comes the submucosa. Now what are the points we have to remember about the submucosa? The points are: the special feature is the presence of the compound tubulo-alveolar mucous gland called the esophageal glands proper. So the important or the special feature of this mucosa layer in the esophagus is the presence of compound tubulo-alveolar mucous gland, or that are also known as the esophageal glands proper. This gland's function, now what is the function? The function is to lubricate the luminal wall. Lubrication of the luminal wall is the primary function of the compound tubulo-alveolar mucous gland. Now in the submucosa we also can find some small aggregations of the lymphoid tissue. Also some plasma cells and macrophages can be present. So these are the mucous glands. These are the mucous gland. This one, this structure, these are the mucous gland. These are the mucous gland. After that, this total layer is the submucosa, and then these are the clusters of adipose tissue. So our next layer is the muscularis externa layer. This muscularis externa layer consists of the inner circular and outer longitudinal layers of muscle. Now the very important part is the composition of muscle in the esophagus. So if we divide the esophagus into three parts, so the upper 1/3 part of the esophagus is made up of only skeletal muscle, and the lower one third of the esophagus is made up of only smooth muscle. So upper one third is made up of skeletal muscle and the lower one third is made up of smooth muscle. Now what about the middle one? The middle one, the middle layer or middle one third of the esophagus is made up of combination of skeletal and smooth muscles together. So in the upper one third we find the skeletal muscle, in the lower one third we find the smooth muscle, and in the middle one third of the esophagus we find a combination of skeletal and smooth muscles. Now important thing, the myenteric plexus, which is present between the outer and inner muscle layer, which produces the peristalsis in proximodistal direction. Now what is the direction of peristalsis? The direction of peristalsis is proximodistal, means from proximal part to the distal part. So this is the inner circular layer of the muscle and this is the outer longitudinal layer of muscle. Now our next layer or the outermost layer, the adventitial layer. The muscle layer of esophagus is surrounded by dense fibrous tissue that forms the adventitial coat for the esophagus. Now the lowest part of esophagus is intra-abdominal and has a covering of peritoneum. So which part of the esophagus is having a covering of peritoneum? So the lowest part of the esophagus is intra-abdominal. As it is intra-abdominal, so it has a covering of peritoneum. So let's see this. This is a blood vessel and this layer is called the adventitial layer. So now we'll go towards the microscopic view of the esophagus. So this one, the outermost layer, it is the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. The stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, the outermost layer. After that, this region is the lamina propria region. After that, these are the mucous gland. These are the mucous gland, which are one of the identification features of the esophagus, on the basis of which we can identify a given slide as the slide of esophagus. So we have to identify these mucous glands. After that, this is the layer of inner circular layer of muscles and this is the layer of outer longitudinal muscle layers, and this one is a blood vessel, which we can see in this slide. So now we will directly go towards the identification points of this slide of esophagus. So there will be presence of 4 layers, that is number 1 mucosa, which is the innermost layer. After that the submucosa, then the muscularis externa, and the outermost layer, that is the adventitial layer. What will be the lining epithelium? The lining epithelium will be stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium will be the lining epithelium for esophagus, and the submucosa will be starred means that can be embedded. That means the submucosa will be embedded with mucus secreting esophageal glands. These are the mucus secreting esophageal glands. These are the mucus secreting esophageal glands. So the mucous gland, these are the identification features. On the basis of these glands, we can identify that this slide is of esophagus. So with this, I conclude our today's lecture, and if you people find the video informative, then please subscribe the channel, like the video and share this video among your friends. Thank you all. See you in next video.